Do you think our mother held her non-binary children for just a moment longer as we said goodbye? Do you think she wept to know that, like her, we too would be forgotten, pushed to the fringes of doctrine? Does she sigh, knowing that her identity and ours are intrinsically misunderstood? Do you think our mother walks a little closer to those unchained by gender, whispering to us, "It's all right, my child. I understand. Men have hidden me too." Chris Irvin.
Welcome to the In Her Image podcast, where we are seeking and celebrating our Mother God through scripture, scholarship, meditation, the arts, and everyday life. Today we have a really special guest. I have been following this person on Instagram for several months now, and I've always been inspired by their content. I have just really been touched by their authenticity and sincerity, and I just feel their faith and love through everything that they post, and I can only imagine some of the experiences they might have been through that could have been quite rocky, being in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which isn't always totally inclusive as it should be. So we are really grateful and excited to welcome Arawn. And Arawn uses they, he pronouns. Kate and I use she, her. And we are just so excited to talk about some of these questions that we have sent via Messenger. And that process was educational. I sent a list of, I think, 4 questions, and Arawn was very kind to ask some questions that kind of guided these questions to be what they are now, and just provided some really needed clarification. And I'm just really grateful that we've had this opportunity to learn from a gender-expansive person. So thank you, Arawn, for being with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. Kate, is there anything you would reword about what I just said?
I thought it was great. I wanted to, after I read your messages, I wanted to communicate that to our listeners. If this is new territory for anyone, I just loved that example of, we didn't even know quite what we were asking, but for someone to respond in a way that helped us clarify and understand and learn. And I think with any situation, with any person and their life experiences, all of us just want to be understood. Sometimes we can feel nervous about asking the right question. And, Arawn gave a great, very Christ-like example to us. And I think many people would also do that, would just want to be understood, and we want to understand each other. So Arawn is also an artist, and that was one of the things that stuck out to us about him. And they've written some blog posts about Heavenly Mother, and so that's why we just really wanted to have this conversation and hear more from their voice. So again, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I'll just jump into our first question. We're going to talk more about your art in a little bit, but our first question is just, how do you feel about the doctrine of Heavenly Mother? And how do you feel that your gender has affected your feelings?
So pretty much all of the questions you guys sent over were very loaded questions. But basically, I really like the doctrine about Heavenly Mother. I think it's good that women have this example to see their own divinity and inner worth in that representation of a Heavenly Mother. And I think it is a very beautiful balance of that divine feminine versus the divine masculine that's much more prominent in the organized church. As far as my take on my gender, and my gender is a transmasculine non-binary person. Kind of on a broader sense, the doctrine of Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father and being this nuclear family has often been weaponized against those who are gender expansive and those who are not straight. And so that definitely complicates my feelings about Heavenly Mother, but it's not really Heavenly Mother herself or like this concept of divine feminine. It's more about how it's been used by those within the church.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's really interesting that you have different feelings about the actual doctrine of a Heavenly Mother and her as your mother versus how members have used that doctrine. So thank you for sharing about that. So we'd love to know a little bit more about your personal experience seeking her. What has your journey been like?
Yeah. So I've talked about this in some of my Instagram posts as well as some blog posts on my website. But I first started seeking out Heavenly Mother before I had fully accepted my true gender identity. And it was done to try and kind of make peace with my assigned gender at birth and what I had been told about the roles and just kind of the identity surrounding that. And so I was still very caught up in being very strict about policies within the church and seeking Heavenly Mother, where there aren't really any set rules about how we can seek her and how we can connect with her, really helped me to open up my understanding of my own spirituality. There's this illustration by this guy on Instagram. His handle is Naked Pastor. And the first image is this image of a church, and then God, the letters are fit inside that. And then the second image, the word God is written much bigger, and there's a little church fit inside the O in God. And that's how my seeking of Heavenly Mother really felt like. At first, I was trying to fit in the spirituality within the bounds of the church. And then as I was seeking Heavenly Mother, I saw that spirituality is boundless and isn't really within the confines of a specific religion. And as well, seeking Heavenly Mother or the divine feminine, there's a lot of different aspects of femininity. And so different people are going to connect with different sides of the divine feminine. For me, the part of the divine feminine that I really connected with is very wild and fierce. And so where I found her the most was when I was out in nature by myself, oftentimes in the mountains, among trees, and I could feel her as the wind was rushing through those branches or in the distant storms. And it was really beautiful experience, but I also didn't really get a whole lot of words when I talk with Heavenly Mother. It feels more just like this calling to me, this longing for coming home within her, within nature, and also within myself, just a calling towards wholeness. And so that's my experience with Heavenly Mother.
Wow. That was poetic.
Thank you.
I love that. It really reminded me of the blog Gender and Our Heavenly Parents.
I can bring that up if you want me to read that.
Yeah, you should read it. I think that would be good.
Okay, yeah. So this part is a quote from one of my blog posts, and it says, "The divine feminine tastes like thunderstorms and cracks of lightning. She feels like something untamable and fiercely joyful. The divine masculine is a blanket by the fireplace, the assurance of early summer sun. He feels like the tug when your belayer catches you. They both watch over me and guide me. Through them, I seek information both from institutions and from my inner knowing. Through them, I can value both reasoning and passion."
It's so good. Thank you for reading that. I love that description too. And I just have to say, just sitting here being a part of this conversation and knowing that lots of people will get to hear it, I have felt spirit chills multiple times in one night, which is kind of rare for me. Usually I get it like maybe once or twice in like a month. And I just want to say thank you so much, because I think a lot of people, like Kate was saying earlier, we all just want to feel seen and understood. And I feel like a lot of people are going to relate a lot to you and your experience, and maybe haven't seen examples very much in their life up to this point. And so just thank you in general. But I'll let Kate ask the next question.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about your artwork. You have had some artwork in the Church History Museum, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so cool. So my question is, how have your artwork and writings been inspired by your journey seeking the goddess? And we'd love to have you share about some specific pieces that come to mind. There's one that is depicting Heavenly Mother with her arm outstretched. So anything that you'd like to share about making that piece of art and how Heavenly Mother has influenced you as an artist?
Yeah. So I do several different types of artwork. Two specifically that I would say are more influenced by the divine feminine would be my watercolor pieces as well as my digital illustrations. So my watercolor pieces most often are of landscapes. And like I talked about earlier, for me, connecting with the divine feminine is a lot about going out in nature by myself. And when I work on paintings out in nature, it's often very meditative, and it allows me just to kind of commune and find that peace. And so there might not be overt influences, but that is one of the main reasons why I do watercolor landscapes in the first place, is so I connect with her. As far as the digital illustrations go, I have 3 ones that were more overtly influenced by my seeking of Heavenly Mother. And the first one I made, is called A Loving Embrace. And this one is of a Black woman, and behind her there is a purple galaxy. And there are 2 hands that are kind of protecting her. And one is more feminine and one is more masculine. And this was the first time I tried to portray God that I can think of. And it was with these hands of more feminine and more masculine that I was trying to portray a more whole depiction of God, as they are in this woman's life, influencing and protecting and guiding her. And the second painting is called Heavenly Reaching. And I believe this is only on my website at the moment, but eventually when I decide to talk about it, it will also be posted on my Instagram. But this painting is of a beach and a sunset, and the waves are crashing against the rocks, and when they come up, they form a kelpie out of the water, and this kelpie is rearing up to reach the nose of a dragon, which is in the sky that's reaching down towards the kelpie. And when I originally was doing the composition for this painting, it was about a daughter and her deceased mother, and just kind of this connection between them. But at the same time, I had been doing a lot of work on my own, specifically to work on my mother wound. And as I was working through that, I was becoming more aware of this desire to have a connection with a heavenly mother, or like that connection with the divine feminine, to help heal that wound. And so as I started painting this, it became a lot more about that connection, that reaching towards my heavenly mother. Just as on one level, there was this daughter who was reaching towards her mother beyond the veil. On another level, it was about a person reaching their heavenly mother, which was also beyond this veil. And so the third and final piece so far that I have about seeking Heavenly Mother is the one that you talked about in the question. And this one is called Goddess of Creation. And this one is of a Black woman, and she's dressed all in gold. And she has her hands outreached, and around her hands are these stylized planets, as well as kind of just stylized representations of her power of creation. And these stylized planets are all painted to kind of mimic gold leaf, because I think that looks really cool. But this painting itself was actually in a response to, as I was kind of further down my path of seeking Heavenly Mother, and I was getting tired of all of these roles associated with not only Heavenly Mother, but just women in general, where the role was very centered down to just that role of being a mother and not them as a whole person. And so this was in response to that, and it's a representation of, well, at least trying to capture more of her complete glory in the fact that she's a creator of worlds, and that her hands are in our lives just as much as any of the godhood, and just trying to show some of that power that she has.
And this painting is stunning, as I'm sure the other ones are, but you really must look them up if you haven't seen this one. And this is the one that is on display, is that correct?
No, it is not. The first one that was displayed is Heavenly Host Praising God, which is a nativity scene, which focuses on the angels. And then, and actually it should be in the church museum right now. I have a painting of Jesus and the women accused of adultery. And that is the other one that hopefully is in the church museum.
Your blog, if people want to look this up, is art by arawn.weebly.com.
Correct.
Right? And that's their name is spelled ARAWN. So you can see their art gallery there, read their blog posts. Yeah, just
thank you.
so now hearing more of like what inspired those. I'm excited to go and look at them again, and appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing about those pieces. It's really inspiring hearing a bit of the process and the reasoning for creating them. So this question is shifting gears a little bit to, what do you wish that more heterosexual cisgender people knew about your lived experience as a transgender person?
As I said, lots of loaded questions here.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I think one of the most frustrating things is there are still people who are trying to talk me and other queer people out of our identities. They think that we don't understand our own selves, when it's quite the opposite. I knew that I had dissonance with my assigned gender when I was very young. We're talking like 7 or 8 or thereabout. But I just didn't have words for it. And so I've been studying this. I've been struggling with this. I've been trying to figure it out for the majority of my life. And so I have put a lot more thought into this than probably any cishet person ever needs to. So when I finally got past all of the shame that I had around this, when I finally made peace with all of this and stopped trying to stamp it out, this was an accumulation of a lifelong journey. And for someone to be dismissive about it, to assume that they know more than I do about this, is very insulting, and not very empathetic. So, like, when people share this part about you, about themselves with you, it is in a sense, it's a sign of trust. And at least for me, if I share it, I'm not looking for validation. I'm not looking for permission. I'm just asking you to love and support me for who I am, because when I share that, that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing a very fragile part of me that has taken me a long time to embrace.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about just the core truth of that is that nobody knows us like we know ourselves. And that makes so much sense. Like that, like you said, like you've been studying this and trying to figure this out your whole life. And many people, including myself, we speak about things that we just assume that we understand, whether it's about gender or just other people's lived experiences. And I was thinking about how, on the one hand, sad that many people weaponize God, like say that God doesn't support this or whatever. And then on the other hand, like grateful as I've listened to the experiences of queer people who have decided to be themselves, right? They have had the help of God, of this external source of love, unconditional love for them that has helped them through that when there's a lot of pushback kind of everywhere you turn, even if you have supportive family. It's just, I imagine like swimming upstream, but for you to continue to keep that connection with God and not listen to what other people say, that whether God supports or God condones or whatever. I think that's beautiful. And yeah, I'm grateful that I am every day hearing more experiences of queer people that just affirming like God doesn't want to change this about me, no matter how much you think that. So
yeah.
Thanks for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you. And yeah, you brought that up. I don't think I've mentioned it here, but you're right. I had a very similar experience where finally making peace with my gender was through God. And I don't think I would have been able to do it without God gently leading me to that. They were very patient with me, and it was a very slow process of deconstructing a lot of my beliefs and my fears and my shame around a lot of things before I finally was able to even bring up that question with them and say, hey, is this okay? Will I have a place in salvation? Will I lose this part of me? All of these questions that I was so scared to ask because I thought I knew the answer because of everything that I had been taught growing up. And it was a very beautiful, sacred experience for me where God said, no, you are okay. There is a place for you. This you that you are now in the next life, that's not going to be less than. And this is something I've talked about in my posts as well. But as mortals, we have a very finite understanding of things. And so what exactly that's going to look like in the next life, I don't know. But I know that this understanding that I've come about myself is not something that I'm going to lose either. And that was actually very comforting, because I think you could understand the idea of losing part of yourself going into the next life. Even if people tell you that it was wrong for all of your life, it would still not, it would be scary, not very comforting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And I think, how can you know anything without the Holy Ghost? Without our Heavenly Parents' communication and also trusting our own knowing, And I think for many of us, we've kind of come up against this in our patriarchal world of don't trust your own self and what you think and what you feel. Trust what someone else says. And I think that's part of this rising of the divine feminine, is tapping back into our intuition and who we are. And it's beautiful.
I can only imagine Christ saying the same thing, right? He was always telling the people not to judge not. And I can just picture him saying to somebody who's telling you something about your experience, I can just picture Christ saying something like, "Ye speak of what ye know not." Basically, I don't think you know what you're talking about. And I think in these circumstances, it's a lot more helpful to both parties to listen, to ask questions and listen to somebody and give them that chance. I see a problem too with people just not believing people in so many different aspects of life. And I'm sure it's really prevalent in this one too, where people just don't believe you. And we can do better at that, at trusting each other and listening. And so thank you so much for sharing that. That is a message that I hope will spread far and wide.
Thank you. I agree. Those were beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah, this has been really special. This question is it's probably a loaded question still, but a cap off question. What do you hope to see in the future in the church in regards to Heavenly Mother, as well as the LGBTQ community? That's a big question.
You're right. That's a very loaded question. Yeah. And so when I've been talking about the community, I refer to it as the queer community. And there's a lot of people who use that terminology. And then there also is the LGBTQIA plus community. And the I and the A are also important because the intersex and asexual and aromantic communities are often overlooked, and their experiences are often denied, similar to, well, the rest of us in the queer community. But going back to the loaded question.
Thank you for that correction. Yeah. Well, I will be better at remembering all.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a lot, but
so is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
That's true.
If we can say that, then
it is a very good point.
We can handle a few more letters.
Very good point.
Right?
Yeah. So as far as your loaded question, I think that the stigma about seeking Heavenly Mother and the discriminatory policies against queer people are a symptom of a much larger problem within the church. Because the church's foundations are not only built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ, but they are built upon the prejudices of the United States, especially in its infancy, because that's where it was formed and created, per se. So unless the church can get really honest and willing to look into all of this misogyny and racism that is prevalent not only in the church culture, but just the United States culture in general, we're going to head down a not great road, essentially, where the church is going to not be somewhere that is going to be very welcoming for a majority of its members, which is really sad if you think about that. And so my hope for the future is that the church will put in a lot of concentrated work into undoing these social dogmas. Essentially being willing to admit to the fallibility of leadership and policies, and allowing all of the minority groups within its members to be part of the decision making, to be part of the leadership, so that, as you talked about, like listening to all of the members and their experiences, so that we can be a church that truly is a sanctuary for all of its members, and a place where all of its members can feel like they can, and not only feel, but truly do have the gospel in all of its fullness, in, as I said, not just word, but also in deed.
Going back to the inclusive gospel that Jesus Christ taught.
Exactly.
You know, I like what you said, the social dogmas, casting those aside. Until then, we talk about what's keeping us here, and it's sometimes sticky, but I think it's hope. I think this is our community. This is, Jess and I grew up in this church. I'm guessing by what you've said that you also did, and I think, like what they say on At Last She Said It, it's my church too. Dang it, So I think, yeah, we need to keep that hope and be part of the change in as much as we feel we should, in as much as we can. If we're in a position, I want to give the qualifier of if somebody didn't feel safe, or like the church was harming them too much, I'm not saying you still should stay, but does that make sense? I'm just saying this is my perspective that I want to to follow Jesus Christ, and this is my community where I'm trying to do it. But
that's beautiful. And I think that is a perspective that at least some of the queer members that I've spoken with share. Like, this is their community, just as it is anyone else who's grown up in that church. And for them to be basically cast out from that community is very sad. And it's also sad that a lot of queer members don't feel safe, and rightly so, because, I think you've talked about it a little bit, but our current nomenclature around families and sexuality and all of that is very distancing and alienating to a lot of the queer community. And so it's hard to sometimes even feel the spirit when you're just trying to get over how much you're being hurt, even unknowingly, by some of what's being said.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and for your gentle corrections and willingness to walk with us along this process. We're really grateful to know you and call you a friend. This topic means a lot to me. My youngest brother is gay, and I don't want to speak for him too much, but I think he would agree that from a pretty young age, he didn't feel safe or very welcome at church. And just by the doctrines and the way that we teach or overemphasize perhaps certain teachings. And I think we can all do a better job. And I think we need to just assume that in our congregation, if you teach Relief Society, if you teach Young Women's, whatever space you might be serving in, we just need to assume that there are members of that group who are part of the queer community, and we can use more expansive language and be more sensitive and aware of those needs and how we can better help and edify and love all of the body of Christ. So thank you so much for helping us to do that a little bit better today. And we'd love to hear you share again at the end of the podcast. So it's just right here for anybody who wants to go look up your artwork or your blog posts. Where can they find you?
Yes, thank you. So the two main places that I am on the internet are Instagram, where my handle is Art by Arawn. So ARTBYARAWN. And then my website is that handle again, so artbyarawon.weebly, WEEBLY.com. And if you go to either of those places, there are also links to where else you can find me, including my online store where you can buy prints of my artwork and also get wallpapers for your phone if you sign up for my newsletter, if you want my artwork with you.
Beautiful. Thank you. And like I said in the beginning, Arawn's content is really, really great. So you'll want to be listening and receiving those insights that they're constantly sharing. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll share it. And if you haven't yet, please leave us a review. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can make a monthly donation at anchor.fm/inherimage. We hope you'll tune in next Sunday for another inspiring episode.